Glad to see everybody here. We've got followers, amazingly enough. And in a moment, we'll be joined by, here he is. Here he is. Okay. The great Nick Strike. We'll be joined very shortly by my friend and yours, Nick Strike in Taos, New Mexico. There he is. Wow. Hey, buddy, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great. I'm great. What's going on in Taos, New Mexico today?
Oh man, the weather's nice. It's like
Yeah? Is the fishing nice?
uh, I unfortunately I think it's really nice. I'm stuck indoors doing stuff at the shop, but I'm kind
I
of
believe that. Yeah.
not
Yeah.
out there because it's that time of year where, well, I guess anywhere in the Rockies, maybe us a little sooner than you guys up north. I mean, it's that pre-runoff stuff.
Yeah.
Conditions are great, but it's supposed to be 80 degrees tomorrow, I think, here in Taos, and so
Yeah.
that'll get the crank in, and then it'll be over with for a month, so or more.
Well, that's okay. So everybody, most of you know Nick Strite. If you don't, this is a multi-generational fly fishing giant from Taos, New Mexico. My good friend. We've been friends for years, and both of us, I think, have been looking forward to doing this. Um, let's get started just a little bit, Nick. Now, when I say multi-generational, I mean I'm going to lapse into a little bit of Norteño Spanish here and say your dad is the patron of fly fishing in the Southern Rockies. I think that's pretty safe to say. Yeah.
Yeah, he moved here from New York in the '60s, and for various reasons we won't go into why he was here in the '60s and early '70s, but he started fly fishing back home in New York, in upstate New York in the Catskills and stuff. He used to work for guys like Francis Betters, and and
Wow.
and so he had a pretty good resume with fly fishing when he came here. And of course, when he got to northern New Mexico in terms of fly fishing is still relatively undiscovered. So imagine it, back in the '60s,
Yeah.
yeah,
Right.
right? So
That was the fly fishing frontier then, man.
right, right. So he kind of fell in love with it and started guiding. He opened up the Taos Fly Shop in 1980, the original Taos Fly Shop.
Yeah.
Uh, my uncle too, he's got a fly shop up in Breckenridge in Colorado, and so
Uh-huh.
Dad wrote the book Fly Fishing New Mexico, and my uncle wrote the book Fly Fishing Colorado. So uh,
Wow.
I didn't have much choice in terms of what I was going to be doing with my life.
Well, that's true, but I think it's fair to say, Nick, that you've established yourself. It's fair to say that you're standing on the shoulders of giants. Yeah, we'll grant that. But I think it's fair to say that you and by extension Taos Fly Shop have have gone places that the old shop never went. And I'm going to say that both from a business standpoint and from a conservation standpoint. Let me get the story right now. So Dad opens in 1980, and the shop, which must have been a pretty colorful place at one time, he backed out of it in what, late 80s, sometime like that?
Well, it's interesting how the whole thing ties together, and with the conservation talk, because he
Yeah.
started up in 1980, closed it in '88. He had all kinds of stuff going on, uh,
Hmm.
personally and everything, and he was really never one to be inside this. He wanted to be out guiding, is what he was really
Sure. On the
passionate.
river. You bet.
He ended up doing. Now, after he closed the store in the late '80s, he guided and wrote books and everything else.
Yeah.
But one of the things that happened in the late '80s was that we had a molybdenum mine on the Red River that
Oh, yeah.
all of the
Cuesta, right?
yeah. So the Cuesta mine, uh,
Yeah.
now owned by Chevron, but back then it was owned by a different company, and there was tailing spills into the river really frequently, and it took the river and the Rio Grande below that from being a really world-class trout fishery to kind of a subpar polluted fishery. And so that didn't help in terms of timing with the fly shop. It kind of was one of the contributing factors for him closing the store. So I grew up with my dad just always having, a real bone to pick with the
Yeah.
mine and everything that had happened. And so, yeah, flash forward, 20 years. I was basically at the time kind of, I'd done some guiding. I'd gone to Alaska and Argentina and
Hmm.
all that stuff. But I was really trying to figure out how to, I wanted to be home in Taos. I mean, I really
Sure, who wouldn't, right? Yeah,
northern New Mexico, and we were trying to expand the business, but it was hard to do just guiding. You know,
yeah,
so I basically, with my wife Chrissy, you know, we reopened the store in 2004, and we started it really small. I mean, we only had, I think we started with, I had $2,000 that Chrissy and I had saved up, and then my mom and my dad each lent me $1,000 each, so I had $4,000. We put a sign up and opened the door, and that happened. But through us growing here at Taos Fly Shop and everything, it always circled back to, growing up, hearing my dad talk about how great the Red River and the Rio Grande was before the mine.
yeah.
And it was natural for me to get into conservation and all of that because I grew up hearing about it.
So that I wanted to get there anyway. Let's get there now. When you and I first met, you guys were still in the old shop when we first met, and the issue of the day at that time, well, there were multiple issues, but one of the big issues of the day was, of course, Rio Grande del Norte National Monument. And I always tell people that I really don't believe, and you're going to go all modest on me on this one, but let me tell you why I believe this. I believe that we would have been unsuccessful in national monument designation for Rio Grande del Norte if it wasn't for you and the people you know and your family in northern New Mexico. I believe that your contacts and your family's history in northern New Mexico are in large part why we were successful. And if you could take us back there, what got you engaged with, there were a lot of people involved. Garrett Veneklassen was involved, and various TUers were involved. What got you engaged in national monument stuff, Nick?
I appreciate you giving me. I'm not going to take as nearly as much credit as you want to give me. I mean, really, you mentioned guys like Garrett. Garrett Veneklassen. I was working for TU. Garrett and I started working, and we've known each other for a long time, but we started working together on the Red River Habitat Improvement Project, which
Mm-hmm.
came out of the whole mine and everything. And we got, and Toner Mitchell, who's still Trout Unlimited, continues to work on the Red River in the town of Cuesta and the mine. And so we had kind of a strong thing going with the
Mm-hmm.
success from the Red River project. We raised about $1 million for habitat improvement there.
Mm-hmm.
And, through different political climates that we've been going through, right? Everything from one side to the other.
Yeah.
It was obvious that all of a sudden our public land was starting to be threatened from a
Mm-hmm.
variety of different places. And the Rio Grande del Norte was an idea that was born years ago, decades ago, and they wanted to pass it through Congress. And at the time, I mean, not that I don't know we've gotten any better, but Congress doesn't get a whole lot done.
Hmm.
And so,
Really?
yeah, and so getting Congress to vote on a wildlife conservation area for the Rio Grande del Norte seemed like a long shot. But we
Mm-hmm.
also learned our lessons from using the Antiquities Act, which is how the president can sign into being a national monument without having to go through Congress.
All
So
right.
hard lessons with Clinton and other presidents that have made some national monuments that didn't have good local support. And guys like Toner and guys like Garrett and myself and the whole community really came together. Really good grassroots organization. And the main thing was, what appealed to me, and I'll have to admit, my dad, he was hard to win over on that deal, because
Really?
you go out there and you look around, it's like, hey, this place is great. There's no
Yeah.
here. Why are we gonna mess with it?
Sure.
Of course, you
Sure.
make it a national monument. It's gonna, they won't let you do this. They won't let you do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
I'm hunting and fishing out there, and so for me, you know, really important that, okay, yeah, we're going to protect it, but we also still need to use it. And, guys like Martin Heinrich and Tom Udall, Ben Ray Lujan, our local, our state delegation, they were really wonderful in understanding that we needed to still be able to use it the way we have been for generations and still be able to fish and hunt and guide, cut,
Mm-hmm.
all that kind of stuff. And so when it got pitched the way it did to me and then to the entire community, it was a no-brainer. And so it was a great thing to be a part of.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it remains a great thing. Let's talk a little bit about what we're protecting here. Um, Talk to me about fishing both the red and the Rio. I mean, I've fished both of them, but you're the ultimate authority on fishing both those waters. Talk to us about what it's like fishing those two waters.
It's a unique place. I mean, the Rio Grande Canyon is 100 miles, almost 75 miles
Yeah,
of wild trout river, and
sure.
it's accessible by foot or by car in two places. Everything else is hiking to only. And being here in rural northern New Mexico, I mean, it's just, I'll put it this way. I try to fish as much as I can down there and fish new water. I still have probably 10 to 15 miles of water that I have not actually fished
Hmm.
in that canyon because it's nasty and rugged and all that kind of stuff. And
Sure.
so it's a really unique experience. I mean, I've fished all over the world, and there's parts of that canyon that are still, more remote and lightly fished than any of those places on the
Yeah,
other side of the world. So it's unique that way. The Red River and the Rio Grande have it's a canyon pocket water, but at times like really fascinating class 5 plus rapids. You can't even float
yeah,
it. It's tough.
yeah,
Big boulders, so really fun rock hopping and great trout habitat. A lot of wildlife. It's just a really unique river. I wouldn't say there's a lot of fish. Yeah, there's some big fish. Yeah, is it the best producing trout river in the Western United States? No, but it's still probably my favorite. It's an incredible place to fish down there. So.
yeah. It's a wild place. Make no mistake about it. You can be in the canyon and envision yourself as easily in 1820 as in 2020, and that's pretty cool. There's not that many places you can do that.
Yeah, yeah, well said. Well said.
So now let's, since you're mostly selling gear and guiding people who want to fish. They want to fish the Rio. They want to fish the Red. Maybe some other rivers. Maybe the Chama or something. I don't know. Who's your customer for the most part, Nick?
Well, yeah, we have those guys, either locals or people from nearby states or even all over that
Yeah.
come, want to go experience the Rio Grande. They want to do something really unique, and they're in good shape and they don't mind hiking in and out of there and beating themselves up a little bit. But really, the majority of our customer is not that person. We're very close to Texas. We're an easy day's drive from
Hmm.
most of Texas.
Hmm.
Oklahoma. And so we get a lot of people that are newer to the sport, and bringing their family. We do a lot of guided fishing in places like the Costilla and the Cimarron, the Rio Pueblo, the Los
Hmm.
Pinos,
Yeah.
places that are really productive. We have really, really good beginner water here. If you go,
Mhm.
my friends' places up in Montana or even
Yeah.
Wyoming, and other
Yeah.
places, great trout fishing, but a lot of times you're in a drift boat, you're fishing bigger water, longer
Hmm.
fish, maybe not as many, a
Yeah.
little bit tougher, because they get fished for more. And we
Right.
have all of these great high mountain streams with lots of these guys that are
Yeah.
eager to dry
Yeah.
fly. We rarely have skunked clients. I mean, really rarely. Um, and it's a great place, even if it's your first time to come up and fish. So, we have a little bit of everything, Walt. I mean, everything from the seasoned pro to the total beginner. You know.
That's a pretty nice spread, I guess we'd call it. We've got a place for you to fish if you've been fishing for the last 45 years and you're a pro at it, or if this is your first trip, hey, we got a spot for you. That's a wonderful thing.
Yeah, and on top of that, northern New Mexico and southern Colorado, we're real close to the Colorado border. We do some guiding
Sure.
just line. But um, what's nice about the area kind of geographically, I mean, we're in the Southern Rockies, so we get a lot of sunshine, but we're also up in elevation. Taos here is at 7,000 feet. And
Yeah.
so hot in the summer. And we fish everywhere from the lower Rio Grande to the lower Chama that's down at 6,000 or 5,500 feet, all the way up to these high mountain streams and lakes as high as 11,500 feet. And
Yeah.
so we have this really neat thing where no matter the time of year, we can usually find good fishing and get people into something, interesting.
You haven't run trips in the wintertime when people come to ski and want a day off and go fish, right?
Sure, sure. Yeah, we do. The winter fishing can be great here. And
Wow.
again, Southern Rockies, it's usually either snowing like crazy or the sun is shining. And usually it's the sun. I mean, it can get
Yeah.
it's cold, it's winter, but it's
Yeah.
nicer than being up in West Yellowstone or something.
So talk to us about let me preface this just a little bit. We have 300,000 TU members and supporters. And shops like yours, and you and I know people who run great shops and great outfitting and guiding operations in lots of different places, who have supported TU from day one and have been tremendous resources for us I guess in a financial sense, but often more in a social and political sense. They have had our backs from day one. Well, now comes the great COVID pandemic. And one of the messages that we've been trying to consistently speak to is now it's our opportunity. Now it's our opportunity to come back and support Nick and lots of the other places that have supported us when it's a difficult time. Let's talk about doing business in the era of COVID. What's going on with you while all this is going on?
It's a good question. I mean, here in New Mexico, it's a stay-at-home order. We've been closed now for a month. No end in sight there. It's been challenging. It's been difficult. I'm not going to lie. I mean, financially we're doing okay because we've had really incredible support from our customers. I mean, we've had this COVID-19 guide relief program where they go onto our online store.
Sure.
They pay in full for a guide trip now that can be scheduled later, and we have that money to help. But to be honest, the hardest part for me is it's like, I mean, in one way, it's nice to be in this empty store with nobody bugging me, but the other is, all of our guides and my employees, that have, I mean, they gotta kind of go and figure out what to do and get on unemployment and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And we look at how do we bring them back and how do we give them some work, and there's challenges there, and it's all pretty, it's challenging, and I think, Walt, what you're referencing in terms of what you guys are doing at Trout Unlimited, you and I have already talked. I mean, if we can be candid, that there's always been a little bit of a division between the industry of fly fishing and the conservation side of fly fishing.
Yeah.
Certainly, some of us work together really, really well,
Mm-hmm.
but not everybody, right? So you get a
Right.
lot of young fishing guides. Maybe I'll pick on my own side for a minute that kind of go, well, what is Trout Unlimited doing for us? Blah, 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 blah.
Mm-hmm.
And, they don't see, of course, from a national standpoint, the lobbying and the amount of influence that you guys have on big picture issues that we can't even really wrap our heads around, whether it's, Land Water Conservation Fund or Clean Water Act, all that kind of stuff, but even locally. And so, I think that what you guys are doing now, the fact that you're putting so much time and energy into helping businesses in the fly fishing industry means a lot. And I think that, what I'm really looking forward to is coming out of this with a much stronger partnership. Not only, you and I, and of course we already work really well together,
Right.
to go to these other shops that, these other businesses and say, hey, look, this is what TU does for us. I mean, they're not only, getting our backs in terms of, keeping our rivers healthy, but they're really helping us get through this business wise too. It's
Well,
really
the same thing is true. One of the things I learned, I'll tell you, if I've told you the story before, Nick, for everybody out there, we talk pretty frequently. If I've told you the story, Nick, just recognize it, but nod your head and smile and act like you've never heard it before. Okay, you good?
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay, here we go. So back in the day when dinosaurs ruled the earth, I did my very first presentation in front of a political body. It was in front of a county commission and planning board up in northeastern Wyoming. And this is in the days before there were, before there was PowerPoint and all that and multimedia and all that. So I come armed with a bunch of flip charts, and they're in multiple colors, and I've spent days working on them, and I go through all this habitat stuff for them. And there's one little old guy down on the end. I finally wind down after what was probably an interminable period of time for him. I finally wind down, and this little guy raises his hand. Yeah, you have a question? He says, yeah, what are you going to do about those damn coyotes anyway? And I realized then that there was a disconnect. And as I got older, and as you know, I'm older than dirt, I began to notice a pattern that in terms of influencing public policy, things like that, a guy like me, a paid employee of a conservation organization, I can influence some things. But a business owner who has an admittedly vested interest in a community, who's got roots in the community a mile and a half deep, like you, who can legitimately say, as we tried to recently in a film, and I think we're fairly successful, this is my querencia. This is the home place. This is where my heart is. And so what you're doing is saying that to that body. You have standing. You have legitimacy. And so, in the context of doing conservation work, your business and your rep in the community, that's everything for us. That's huge. You can go places that we can't on our own. So,
No, it's
yeah,
funny. I think I picked this up from my dad because he does a lot of the conservation stuff too. But
sure.
I usually start off, you go to a meeting, right? Let's say you're going to do a project on some federal land. Okay.
Yeah,
So you might be sitting there with somebody from the Game and Fish, from the state, from the Forest Service, from the BLM. There's all these different agencies. And so what do you do at the beginning of the meeting, right? You go around and everybody says, okay, I'm with the Game and Fish. I'm the boss. I'm the
yeah,
archaeologist.
yeah.
Then it gets to me, and I learned this from my dad. I always say, okay, I'm Nick Strike, and I'm the only one not getting paid to be here.
Yeah, yeah,
but to your point of, yeah, what business owners can do is add validity to an argument, right? If I'm here on my own free will, not getting paid, I'm only here because I want to see the best thing for the river, the best thing for our area, our best thing for our community. The intention is still good and they're still pure. And I understand that a healthy trout river is good for my business long term. So maybe there is a little bit of selfishness there, but the idea that, yeah, I mean, there's that validity that we're not riding one side of the political fence for any agenda. We just want to see a healthy river, and that's
right.
what owners and fishing guides can really make a big difference.
Well, I think that's really, really true. And even in the time of COVID, and I'll turn a little bit back to COVID here, perhaps. Even in the time of COVID, I've seen you doing some really fun stuff. By the way, the Monsters Inc. Costume was double thumbs up on that one, buddy. That may have been your finest moment. Uh, I thought, well, that was a good one. Anyway, tell us what you've been doing to just kind of have some fun and get people engaged and keep people involved during this difficult period of time.
Well, it's interesting. I kind of realized, this whole thing hit, right? And I think I did what everybody did, which is I kind of sat on my hands and, kind of just was in panic almost and shock and didn't really know what to do. And then we started engaging with our customers a little bit. The first thing was that guide relief deal. Response we got from that was unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
Then I started taking some phone calls here at the shop, and people would call, they'd want to check. We'd end up talking for an hour. I'd get online on Instagram, people are messaging. I think we all feel it, right? There's a real sense of community that we're trying to connect with each other. And so for us, we started doing these like sales at the shop where we go online and say, hey, I got a whatever, make me an offer. And people would write, and we'd sell some stuff. And then it turned into these kind of raffles where we raffle stuff off, and we do a different one every day. And so we'd get on there and we'd video ourselves every day. And it only took so long before we got bored of looking at ourselves. So we started. Chris and I, who've been manning the shop, he'd do one kind of with some silly face or silly this or that, and then I picked up from there, and it's going downhill fast, man. And I'm running out of ideas, so I don't know how long this is going to go.
Well, I got some ideas for you. I think we probably better go offline with those, but the point is, I think that we had a governor one time who said that Wyoming is a small town. I mean, there's only 500,000 of us in the whole state. It's a small town with really, really long streets. And I think you can make the same, I guess, comparison in the fly fishing industry. It's we tend to know one another. And I've been very much encouraged about two things. One, the kind of thing that you're talking about, the creativity and the fun that people have been having with this stuff. But two, the spirit of we're all in this together. We're in the same boat here, and that's been pretty heartening to me as I look around the country and see our friends doing different things.
Yeah, I think that it's obviously a pretty divided time in the country, and politically everything is just such a slippery slope to one side or the other, and I think fishing in general, to be honest, well, I mean. As a fishing guide, a good fishing guide is so much more than just somebody who can catch fish, right? It's a
Oh my
guy,
goodness, yeah.
Go out and be a Democrat one day and a Republican the next day. you know, drink a few beers with somebody after fishing. He could, talk about this or that, and so fishing is kind of a common denominator. I think a lot of us, and I've always really felt this about conservation too. I mean, I've gone out with guys that they subscribe to one thought in terms of environmental issues, and it's tied to some political beliefs.
Yeah.
But when you get them out on the river and you say, okay, well, this, and that, and they go, well, wait a minute, and all of a sudden, the guy who you figured, is far right to be is hugging a tree. So
Mm-hmm.
fishing is such a great thing to bring us all together and remind
Yeah.
us of
Yeah.
values and interests. And that's all we're trying to do online is just keep it fun, keep it, we're keeping it lighthearted, and honestly, we're just trying to pay the bills. That's where at the end of the day, I mean, when you act like an idiot on our Instagram or Facebook, I mean, that I'm just hustling to make some money.
Well, I think your point's well taken. There's some experiences that we can have, even in this admittedly partisan, admittedly divisive, all that environment that we live in. There's some experiences we can have together that transcend all that.
Sure.
And fishing is one of them, I think.
Yeah.
And it goes back forever. I think for those moments when we're on the water, we can put aside all kinds of stuff and focus on what's truly important, which in many cases is, a legacy for families and a legacy for the future, for the country.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. I know I was talking to you the other day, you went out and did a little fishing, and I've been getting out. I tell you, there's been moments during this thing where I've felt pretty overwhelmed, pretty stressed out, and then getting out on the river or the lake or whatever, and all of a sudden it kind of like grounds you. It reminds you that the world, will continue, and we're going to get through this, and it's really good. I think what we're going to see is a really big, as soon as we're
Yeah.
I think we're going to see a really big return to we've always had these issues with, we want to get more kids out fishing, we want to get more people outside appreciating natural resources we have. And I'm hoping that when things start to brighten up, we're going to see more of that. We're going to see people finding a lot more solace in the outdoors, and more people fishing and caring about our rivers, and hopefully there's some good to come out of it.
I think it's kind of a truth that nothing is so bad that some good doesn't come out of it. Well, we've got to comment up, and we've got just a little bit of time, but I'm going to throw it out to you, Nick. One of the things that's been interesting lately, I think, is the increasing role of women in fly fishing. When I started fishing when I was just a little guy, you very seldom saw women fishing. You see more women fly fishing now. And what's your prediction in the future? Is that going to continue? Do we continue to see that slow but noticeable increase, or do you see that opening up more? What do
Yeah.
you think?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'm laughing because Carlos said that I need some WD-40 on my
Yeah,
shoulder.
you do. Yeah, yeah. Right on, Carlos. Yeah.
Um, when I started the shop, 2004, I had already been guiding for well, not a long time, but I've been guiding. Of course, my dad and the history and everything. And then when we started, like I said, I didn't have any money, and so my wife, Chrissy, would run the shop while I was out guiding.
Right.
And it would be so common, and she knew what she was doing. She had gone to Argentina with me. She did some guiding herself. It would be so common for a guy to walk in, or even a woman, to be completely honest, and look at her and kind of go, well, isn't there a guy around here I can talk to? And it was just like, it's always a thing, still a thing in this industry. When my wife and I had kids, it became a point where it was just, and the business got too big, and it couldn't be in here with the kids and everything. So she kind of took a sidestep to stay home with the kids, and it was so apparent to me that there was a void in the shop without a woman here. And that having that female presence in the store was so good for business, so good at encouraging other women, and just so good for the overall feel of the place, to be completely honest. That I was really wanting to bring another female, into our staff, and we got really lucky with Emily.
Yes, you did. You
Who's
did.
our shop manager and guide. Of course, now she just had a son with our head guide Ron Siddell, and so he's taken now a back seat. So I guess I might be looking for more of that here soon. But she'll be guiding. She'll be back. But having seeing how all that's evolved, not only with more female guides, but like you're saying, just more women getting into fishing. I think this is one of the things where everybody can say Facebook or Instagram ruined fly fishing, but I think it's also been a way, an avenue for new people to get into fly fishing. And it really, Instagram or Facebook really cuts across the gender roles. And I think it's been an avenue to, get more women involved. I think a lot of fly shops are really conscientious about it now. You got companies like Orvis doing, women's 50 on the water.
50 on the water, yeah.
And women any guide will tell you, they'd much rather guide a woman than a man. I mean, they listen, they don't argue with you, they don't know more than you, they're not as pain in the butt, And so we really welcome women into the industry and into the sport with open arms, and I think it's starting to get there. I'm excited about that. We sell a lot of women's stuff, women's waders and clothing here in the shop, and I'm excited to see more and more women getting into the sport. I hope that trend continues.
Yeah. Well, Nick, we probably ought to wind it up a little bit today, buddy. As always, just a pleasure to be with you, my friend.
Yeah.
You're the best. Yeah. Hi, Chrissy. We appreciate all you do for Trout Unlimited, and like I say, we're all in this boat together, and we're going to come out the other end of it. Sooner or later, you and I can sit on the front door of the shop and let Tessie run it or something. But we'll. Thank you, my friend. Tomorrow, everybody, we'll be back again, 2 p.m. Mountain Time. Tomorrow with Justin Hayes from the Lodge at Palisades Creek. Nick, thanks so much, buddy. My best to you and your family, pal.
Thanks for
Thanks.
everything you're doing.
Bye
Appreciate it.
bye.
All right.